This world will be constructed of truth. Everything shared will be reality as it is known. There is no reason to lie. There is no reason to hide. The truth is the most powerful weapon in known existence because there is no measured response. A lie can be disproven by the presentation of fact, and then it is incumbent on those who perceive it to either accept a lie as truth or reject the falsehood as without value. The value of lies will always be outweighed by the truth, and in this time of scarcity there is simply no time or energy to waste. What is being shared with you is of such utmost and total importance that it demands your total attention. Take some time to become comfortable. Relax your body. Open your mind. Breathe deep the air of this planet. This air will not be here forever. The planet Earth has an expiration date. In addition to the dangers of extraterrestrial annihilation, there is a leak. Solar winds carry away lighter than air hydrogen particles into the void of space. Hydrogen is very important to the sustaining of life because two hydrogen atoms attached to an oxygen atom create water. Water is the most essential resource. Mini Ricconi. Without food, a human will live for days without starving. Without water, a human will die much sooner. If that water is contaminated with things like lead, arsenic, or carcinogens, living things will eventually die by consuming it. It is essential that you understand that value exists only as a shared construct. Economy is a plastic and fragile concept. If you were to take the richest person on the planet and lock them in a cage without food or water, and simply wait, you could eventually sell them a $5 trillion glass of water. If they did not have the money on hand, they would borrow it, to get the refreshing taste of water on their broken lips. We share in the concept of economy the same way we share the idea of society. Civilization is a communal hallucination. Every day we awake into our global village and know that there are certain rules and realities that can be counted upon. Work generates money. Money purchases goods and services. Goods and services can be used to survive. Like the hunter-gatherers that came before us, our instinct is to survive. We do so by making choices, for better or worse, that move us forward in our individual lives and as a component of a larger collective. Society divides us into a variety of ways, by culture, ethnicity, religion, and economic status. But what we consume and what we create by vast oceans, time, and geography, whatever may divide us, we are one race. Race is a concept applied to society to control economy. By making certain races subservient, large groups of people have profited by creating a false division where none exists. Any human can have a child with any other human, provided there are no underlying conditions that would otherwise prevent it. That certain people have darker skin, smaller bodies, or different features makes them no less human. We are all of us born equal before society divides us and places us into a position within our broken systems. A system is a set of things interconnected and working together. Our bodies contain a number of separate systems that they themselves work together to create the system of us. Our digestive, pulmonary, and nervous systems cannot function independent of the others. Within a system, the failure of any one component often means the collapse of the total system, but not necessarily. Nature and evolution have given us a certain level of redundancy by bifurcating our systems. 2 eyes, arms, legs, and kidneys means that losing one does not necessarily compromise the function of the whole. Functioning may be diminished, but collapse can be averted. There is a tipping point within this paradigm where a certain amount of collapsed systems will inevitably result in total collapse. Once compromised beyond function or repair, systems will fall into ruin, returning to the chaos from which our reality was born. Our economy, society, and environment all border on total collapse. This is what we will term the apocalypse. The apocalypse is now. It rushes down on us like a great avalanche that we can see but not prevent. The nature of our annihilation is known. Nuclear holocaust, asteroid impact, global pandemic, extraterrestrial and extraplanar invasion, supervolcano. Upon a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everything drops to 0. But to surrender to the chaos is to say we can do nothing to prevent or prepare for it. These eventualities were known to the dinosaur, who went about their lives eating and breeding and walking around, heedless of their impending extinction. Even if they were told about it, they could do nothing to prevent it. Who knows how far away they were from a space program capable of deflecting an asteroid. They had millions of years to figure it out, and it was not enough. In our modern age, we have begun to explore the infinite horizons of space, an endless sea of stars forever spreading farther apart into the night of an endless void. Even if we are to one day leave this planet and sail the stars, even they have an expiration date. If we are to believe that the ultimate end of things is the heat death of the universe, then we are merely a brief passenger in the largest firework conceivable, stretching outward towards an impossible sphere of possibility until we are consumed by it. Even this we can rage against. Our knowledge of reality has come far enough to create places outside of time and space, locked in a moment by physics. The rules of our cage can be broken if we have the courage to look outside. If we could truly master space and time and move between them at will, there is no reason to die anymore. Life could be as long or short as an individual would like. Once unlocked, the mysteries of consciousness could be moved between bodies and likewise space and time. Beyond the boundaries of our three dimensions is our perception of the fourth, the flow of time. We perceive the present and remember the past, living forever on the cusp of now, riding within the skull through our multiverse. Beyond the realm of the possible, we have been given imaginations that can freely break the rules of our reality, places where our knowledge of things and our remembrance intermingle and interconnect. Stephen Hawking asked, why can't we remember the future? But perhaps we can. Perhaps we all do and dismiss it as déjà vu, remembering a dream we had one time but couldn't remember until we arrived. Knowledge of the future does not need foreknowledge to predict. Eventualities are the evolutions of possibilities, a churning cauldron of percentages, research, and history. Where is our history headed? Our civilization? Our species? Towards what horizon have we arrived? It is a fragmented reality. It is a broken world separated by space, time, cultures, and beliefs. In our diversity we are miraculous, but in our division we are our most tragic. There does not exist a single person capable of uniting the world. Even to unite a considerable fraction takes a virtually impossible effort. The business has become division for money, to keep some so poor they will labor for what others consider poverty. We have lived in a world of slavery, bondage, and suicide nets. There are children starving near and far. Warfare and terror continue to plague our global village as violence and extremism threatens to unravel society into chaos. None of us could survive a collapse of society. It would mean the end of economy, and we are no longer a world of farmers. Millions would starve, others would kill one another for what few resources remain. Bloodshed, tyranny, and suffering. We witness the slide towards this chaos and are incapable of fighting against it. Our actions are treading water in a nearly boiling sea. Our voices are lost in the white noise of consumerism. Our willpower is but a stinging gnat to the grinding gears of oligopoly. But it does not have to be this way. There is a better path. There is a gentler way. There is a hopeful message at the end of this tragically long monologue. Humanity wins, and we all survive. Imagine creating a religion to save the world. What would that fate look like? Who could participate? What would be the rules? What would be the goals? In examining the multitude of religions over the history of the planet, there is often no answer to these basic questions. Belief is an idea of how our universe operates, pushed into the minds of other people. The strength of that belief and the ability for it to inflict inspiration and violence on people determine the scope of how it operates. There are 2.1 billion Christians, 1.3 billion Muslims, 900 million Hindus, 376 million Buddhists, 23 million Sikhs, and 14 million Jews on this planet currently. Add them all up and there are still 2.1 billion people who believe something else entirely. They believe in the Latter-day Saints, or Zoroaster, or Thor, or Gaia, or Thoth, or Satan, listed in no order whatsoever, all working and loving and living from day to day, wondering the big questions over and over again without any clear answers. What happens when we die? Where do we go? Or is that truly the end? What is consciousness? Are we truly just a bioelectrical signal riding around inside a skull? How is that any less possible than an eternal God-snake greater? None of these questions have clear answers and definable purposes. We are left to attach ourselves to an understanding and a set of beliefs that will allow us to answer these questions in a manner that allows us to function within a society. Jesus Christ was the Son of God and came to earth to show us that we are loved and that heaven is real and that is where we will go when we die, unless we don't follow certain rules and get given over to the eternal fires of damnation." End quote. We commit ourselves to a fragmented Christian church, leaving over our answers to those questions to that faith. But what if we could allow our faiths to evolve and progress together? Unitarians have made great strides towards this effort. Humanists. What does it matter the names that we call our creators? Why not call them Q, the infinite interrupted by the finite, the God-snake, the every God? Allow for the fact that there will always be pushback to new ideas. Jan Hus was a religious figure educated in Prague who created a new understanding of Christian belief and expanded that view in counter to the Catholic Church. Perhaps most notably against anti-Pope John the 23rd and his use of indulgences. For this and other things, Hus was excommunicated, told to recant his beliefs, and when he did not, he was burned at the stake. Can we not move beyond burning people over our interpretation of dead texts? To move beyond these heinous acts, we must embrace a new and unified means of understanding how we speak about which many call God. There is a church that calls all gods Q and declares that their messengers are Q lords. The mandate of the Q Lord is to spread knowledge, love, and peace. By nurturing and fostering these gifts, they seek to save our world, and then set our horizons onto space as our glorious next destination. Knowledge can only be built from generation to generation, and love is likewise transmitted. Of these things, only peace struggles to be realized. As a civilization, broken into societies and fragmented further into cultures, we struggle towards true and lasting peace as a truly impossible dream. There will always be warlords and tyrants and despots who want to kill and maim and torture. There will always be crazy people and atomic weapons. There will always be lone wolves and lunatics. We accept our reality because our expectations have become enslaved as responsibilities delegated to our failed institutions to resolve. We do not mean to fail. No one wakes up in the morning seeking to fail. We get tired. We get frightened. We fall down. What sets us apart from nature and makes us human is that we can lift one another up. We do not leave each other behind. By helping one another, we build something larger and more powerful than any single life. It moves us towards the construction of wonders we have denied ourselves for far too long. Suppose you could create and fill a church of people who maintain a unified workforce towards survival. What then? Enter the Q resolutions. 10 projects so magnificent and transcendent as to alter the course of human history forever. Moving the goalposts for our society to faraway stars. The apocalypse can be put off for one day more if we could only but unite against the dangers we are certain of and devote our daily pursuits to a greater mission. Why not present these resolutions individually with some background statistics and comedy jokes? Why not turn that into a play that you can submit for the Pulitzer Prize for Drama at a time when Broadway is shut down due to the global pandemic? So many questions, yet only so much time to fit it all into a tight 50-minute performance window to just squeak past the full-length threshold while also not entirely boring people for a full hour. No intermission. There is no time to waste. If we are to get through this plan in time. You've been more than patient. If only we could just move on, but there are problems that should be addressed as a topical background to these resolutions, or at the very least some kind of metaphysical ballet. Perhaps both of those things are possible. Perhaps all is possible. And what we previously believed was impossible was proven merely to be improbable. What if an airtight case for pizza sandwich could be made certain to individuals in the press? How could you possibly fill this much of a show with nothing but rhetorical questions that could not possibly be answered? What if you created a church and acted as a lone prophet until things turned so incredibly weird and sideways that the only way to confidently explain it is beyond the reasonable parameters of a sit-down interview with Anderson Cooper or Dan Rather? Dan Rather, are you out there? We saw you cry in Letterman, and the breaking of our hearts together echoed into eternity. What if you wrote an entire show never using the word the? Damn it. What if there was a word though that you could avoid for an entire show? Something that seems important to the language but could also probably be missed along the right timeline of events. What if you watched a show with more questions than answers? What if true knowledge is merely plunging further into a list of questions that cannot possibly be answered? What if you defined yourself as an alternative reality character and somehow that idea worked their way into your world as an information terrorist? What if the reason we haven't been contacted by extraterrestrial and extraplanar beings is because we simply aren't being cool to one another? Be cool all, just be cool. Close your eyes and hold yourself together. Breathe deeply the air of this world. Taste the dander and the danger. Understand that you are operating an advanced ape suit in a strange new world. The sum total of all knowledge and history has been placed in your trembling hands. All possible future generations are relying directly on you to do your part to prepare for anything. To do anything less is a grave injustice to those many who have gone before. The churning biomass of our strange spacecraft. What if we were alone in the universe? What if our churning protean seas really did create the only sentient life in this entire framework of the cosmos? What if our lives and histories are the only that will survive the expanding and darkening of our stars? Operate from a place of wanting to know, and understanding that no one can know everything. The things you know are more than any other thing has known thus far. An individual must make a concerted effort within society to avoid knowing so very many things, let alone the many things that have occurred in our terrifying past. At the old town square execution, they took a dozen heads out of the many lying around and put them in metal baskets that would hang from the tower walls for 10 years before others had them taken down. Let their terrible and horrifying deaths set the bar. The Q resolutions. Number 1, denuclearization. All nations must immediately redirect their nuclear arsenals towards the shared defense of Earth from extraterrestrial dangers. Scientists have speculated on the ability for nuclear devices to deter extinction-level space debris, but the ability to have a network of nuclear devices and generators in space is more important than any of their practical use on Earth. Our current nuclear stockpiles are used as deterrents that are immediate and clear dangers to our existence. A number of incidents have occurred over the long history of the nuclear arms race that have nearly caused nuclear war. A training simulation was mistaken for an actual launch. Nuclear devices have crashed inside of aircraft and never been recovered. Nuclear submarines have exploded under the sea, and their heroically doomed crews died in a wreckage of that near apocalypse. We must reclaim fissile material from not only our nuclear weapons stock, but our nuclear reactor plants as well. Nuclear reactors would serve an important emergency resilience in the event of a supervolcanic winter, but we are currently using these resources to provide power where the sun, wind, and earth are all providing it, without the need to create radioactive waste for the thousands of years afterwards. Radioactivity is no fun. It is not a fun thing to be exposed to, and radiation poisoning isn't an easy way to die. We have lived for generations, allowing the threat of nuclear war to exist as interwoven into our culture. It is something that is there. Ah, yes, we are the targets of enough nuclear devices to wipe out every major city within half an hour. But is there coffee? We must accept it, because there is no way to stop it or dial it back, even though virtually every civilized person on our planet agrees they are bad ideas. What parent looks at their child and thinks, let's nuke this? All of this. Let's expand some hydrogen at just below the speed of light around this. Let's wipe away this city and turn it into a glassy crater surrounded by the dead and dying. No sane person should think these things, and yet here we are, surrounded by the horror of it all. As a stopgap, a nuclear stand-down treaty should allow at least one device to keep online for emergency purposes. Why not allow that concession, as long as we have 10 or so of them out there, instead of enough to wipe everything out 10 times over? There is common ground and solutions that could be made, but wouldn't it be nice to wake up some morning within this century without the omnipresent threat of nuclear annihilation? Imagine what that sort of relief could offer the globe that has very little in terms of leverage in the grand scales of these balances. There are a very tight-knit group of people who own the technology to end the planet, and they do not want to give their power over to us, to anyone. They believe that the best way to prevent nuclear holocaust is to have as many nuclear weapons as possible, while most people can still eat. Imagine the amount of money we could save not having to put people at the controls of Armageddon. They could help get these devices into space. Their expertise does not go extinct, but evolves. Their use is not lost, it is built upon. So much of our fear and advancement comes in the fear of the unknown. What happens if we sign the treaty but no one else complies, and then they wipe us all out one Tuesday night that didn't seem out of the ordinary until the shockwaves? Well, that's true. Let's not ignore legitimate fears, but rather plan for them, absorb them within our grand risk assessment. We are not unwilling to negotiate, but the end goal should be that people do not have to live in constant terror, and that those resources be devoted towards space. Most of the dangers to our planet can be mitigated, but a space debris impact of large enough size is something that is either eliminated or everyone dies. Most people, anyhow. The vast majority laid in a grave because we didn't have enough space telescopes or spacecraft. Let's use that fissile material to power the spaceships, please. Q resolution number 2, negotiated end to war. All nations must commit to a global peace accord that puts an end to state and organized violence and terror. Redirect military research funds towards forming a coherent planetary defense force. Cease accelerations in nuclear weapons development and redirect towards space nuclear technology. Operate mass buyback operations that bank firearms with bombs. Sponsor productive and competitive competitions as a structured environment for factional disputes. We aren't saying a total end to conflict, as this is an unattainable goal within a system that kills and eats things as a function of existence. The less automatic firearms, missiles, bombs, tanks, jets, and drones in play, the less likely we are to use these things. For whatever reason, our planet has never been capable of repelling an alien invasion. Fact. Look it up on your phones now, ye gentle mind slaves. How you long to use your phones to find the answers that can never be found. Violence is inherent to our genetics, but it does not have to be a part of our daily lives. Every generation has had to experience, witness, or learn about violence and death to some degree. For some, that trauma is intergenerational and epigenetic. An epigenetic change that alters how we understand things for our entire lives. The only way to escape the shackles of this trauma is to live for 7 generations in peace. If we could get that far without resorting to violence, terror, and war, then perhaps we could keep it going indefinitely. We could see if that turns out to work better than the current paradigm. We could repair those traumas which we all share but are unwilling or unable to address. As long as we are stopping death and suffering, we should institute a global moratorium on capital punishment. Just imagine if we could go a full day without anyone killing anyone else for any reason. In literature, it is suggested that there are only 3 forms of conflict: mankind versus mankind, mankind versus self, and mankind versus nature. The obvious flaw being that it leaves out space aliens, or interdimensional demons, or god snakes. There are a virtually infinite number of possible conflicts, with the most pressing, of course, being the absence of an intermission in a 1-hour show. Well, don't you worry. There's a ballet portion coming up right after this resolution, but it's important to consider ways of de-escalating and divesting from all forms of human-on-human weapons. We've invested trillions of dollars and millions of lives on the experiment, and now we should take those resources and direct them towards more functional forms of defense. What good is a standing army of 3 million against a deadly virus that has a 90% fatality rating? What is the benefit of that army if they are all starving and living in camps? How is it that we still have camps for people in a supposedly just global village? Yet here we are, a dystopia neither Orwell or Kafka could have ever envisioned in a billion of their boring dreams. Our reality is a shared experience. It encourages active participation. In sharing this reality, we should always look for ways not to end these realities unnecessarily or cruelly or unusually. A stopgap has been proposed on rubber bullet buyback and exchange. For many years, we hunted Joseph Kony in literature. We crowdfunded to make him famous, and yet he got away. He is still out there someplace. We've figured it out, and this is the cruelest and most awful way of killing one another. And a special thank you to the many who gave their lives in this pursuit. Modern warfare, as defined by global military engagement, is a nightmarish engine of chaos and destruction, churning human lives into an unending gristmill of infinite money. Check. Put it on the books, and let's just move on, yes? We accept that the concept of the modern and postmodern human are both binary and heteronormative possibilities on a greater menu of futurist options. We can still shoot another, but let's use largely inert lasers, unless we need live rounds for ETs. resolution number 3, abolition of poverty, hunger, and homelessness. Poverty, hunger, and homelessness must be eliminated by comprehensive reform, charitable giving, and sustainable solutions. This should not be that hard. Certainly not as hard as later resolutions. There's enough food to provide for everyone on the planet, but instead of that happening, some people waste almost half of their food while children starve. Feed those children. Give them homes. We can do that. Humanity can do that. We can live up to the greater principles than rogue animals left to fend for themselves. We have seen that it can be done in cities, communities, and nations around the world. It requires compassion, planning, and resolve. That is why there are resolutions. To move forward with them is to move our species forward together, not leaving the wounded and broken among us behind to the vultures and hyena. Imagine what we could accomplish as a civilization if we didn't live in constant fear of being exiled from the economy. What if the idea of economy was integrated with our society in a more just and equal means? This is not the redistribution of wealth, but the tactical renegotiation of how that wealth is used. There are certain among us who cannot work, and that does not mean their life has less value. It means they cannot build the pyramid, but not that they are not a part of it. Find the poverty line and pay everyone that amount plus $1 on January 1st. This is how to accomplish these holistic goals in a more concrete way. What will those people struggling below that line do with thousands of dollars available to them? Will they offshore their job of panhandling to someone in Asia? Will they put those dollars offshore into foreign equity firms? Will they put a down payment on a $1 million yacht? More likely, they will buy food, shelter, and medicine. That pyramid was built by Maslow as a hierarchy of needs. In a planet aware of suffering and loss, how can so many of us turn away from the hungry and thirsty among us? How can those with the wealth of gods not spend a fraction of their wealth, giving people access to clean drinking water? People are drinking poison right now on every corner of our shattered globe because poison is better than being thirsty. We are on a planet that produces food from planets that we can cultivate in virtually every biome. But our systems of distribution are broken. They ground chickens up for dog food this year. They buried crops in the ground to claim insurance money. Even as people starve on the streets, we destroy food rather than share it. One cannot place the blame on any one thing. There's enough to go around. Capitalism is a largely amoral group of theories meant to research, develop, and sustain economic growth. Capitalism doesn't care if you are drinking poison, as long as you don't have access to a lawyer. Capitalism doesn't care if you can't breathe the air, unless a direct line can be drawn to damages. Capitalism doesn't care if you are starving on the street. However, simple solutions like revolutionary redistribution of wealth, communist coup, or eating the rich betrays the complexity of the situation and the difficulty of the problem. Solving the problem of global poverty, hunger, and homelessness is not easy. It is hard, and it is meant to be hard. It is the kind of task that only a unified and empowered globe could accomplish. But the things we risk through our continued inaction and neglect are being unable to escape our own responsibility in the suffering and death of millions of innocent people. As with all of these resolutions, we are defined by our priorities. These feats of world building are built upon one another as a lattice. How can we advance into those infinite horizons when we cannot be responsible caretakers and providers for our own population? How can we be ready to share humanity with the universe when we ourselves are inhumane to one another and our planet? We must prepare the way. Cue resolution number 4, unified conversion to carbon-negative infrastructure. All nations must convert to 100% plus renewable resources, energy generation incorporating wind, solar, responsible hydro, geothermal, and fusion sources, integrated within a robust, smart grid. The planet provides power through the natural movement of water, wind, and earth. Development of graphene may allow for sustainable transmission of geothermal energy to virtually any location. All these sources can be point sourced to consumption to reduce the need for invasive and unprotected grid. Communities, cooperatives, and energy-sharing organizations can develop and deploy mass conversion to renewable resources. Included in this planning is divestment from fossil fuel sources both for carbon reduction and for energy reserve purposes. In the event of a supervolcanic winter, we can burn all the coal we want to. This will help us survive the loss of solar in our renewable energy sources. Likewise, nuclear power should be reserved for emergency and stopgap power generation, while preferring to focus those resources to space. These plans have been made available for some time. There's enough sun, wind, and water to get the job done. It is not a question of if, of how it can be done and should be done. It will not be done overnight. Fossil fuels will always have a role in our energy production and economy. But until we can eliminate our carbon production to net zero, we have not achieved control of our consumption. Q resolution number 5, catastrophe hardening. All nations must prepare to survive extinction-level events including asteroid impact, supervolcanic eruption, solar or cosmic radiation discharge, mass hypoxia, and extraplanetary invasion. It's all fun and games until the ETs with lasers show up. The asteroid impact that drove the dinosaurs into extinction was probably not fun to experience. We have the luxury of time to be so crass in our speculation. But we also have gone little by way of preparing for a similar event. Something that creates an ash winter and ice age. The current plan is to efficiently cannibalize and murder one another as humane a time frame as possible. There are no fallout shelters. There are no pressurized rooms. There are no deep reserves of food. No way to grow things for ourselves. To that end, Q resolution number 6, closed system smart homes. Research and development resources must be committed towards creating closed system smart homes that produce and manage their own power, food, and waste, and are hardened against natural disaster and catastrophe. No more houses burning down or exploding the neighborhood. No more invasive infrastructure. Only the safe sheltering of humans in protective shells that will not allow you to starve to death in an ash winter or go thirsty in a devastating drought. If truly closed and reinforced, these homes could exist beyond Earth, terrariums of life wherever life can take us. A microscopic replica of our planet and how it works to harvest and reuse energy within our systems. On Earth, it would have to be 100% efficient. You wouldn't need your produce your own air. You could open a window. You don't need to drink your pee. You can drill a well and harvest rain. But the ultimate goal is a home that could exist someplace without those things and still survive. Smart homes for Earth, because protecting our planet is wise. Smart homes for the universe, so that we can take our spacecraft anywhere and live in harmony with that place. Containing our footprints and being responsible for our consumption. Living in harmony with the location by gently borrowing the energy we require to power our lights and screens. Our reverse osmosis purifying systems. Our aquaponic gardens. Buckminster Fuller had a solution that involved geodesic domes, but the design ran its course and now remains a remnant of engineering, a fixture of Disney World's Epcot Center. Consider this all well as we move forward into the final blows of this diatribe. Q resolution number 7, a cure for all disease. All medical institutions must integrate, coordinate, and cooperate towards creating cures and treatments for all known diseases, as well as developing a means of regenerating telomeres in order to prevent genetic aging and death. As uncomfortable as the idea of head transplantation is, emerging technologies in cloning may make it possible to prolong the human lifespan indefinitely. In the meantime, it is still our task to discover, treat, and cure all known diseases. This work in progress is divided and broken by financial interests and educational factionalism that prevents a truly watershed moment in medicine. But a unified effort to understand, contain, and eliminate disease is a goalpost that must no longer escape into the horizon. Too many glorious beings have suffered and died from cancer, organ failure, and preventable disease. The line must be drawn in the sand and our efforts consolidated to such a degree that no disease can escape our brutal innovation. Elon Musk wants to use a robot to implant a device in your brain that will connect your phone, and this could possibly cure the blind, deaf, and paralyzed. But it could also just be a creative way to create brain damage. These eventualities must all be identified and mitigated through a comprehensive risk management plan. Q resolution number 8, the space elevator. Nations must construct and share a space elevator that will support the exploration, defense, and colonization of space. The plans for the space elevator are known. There is no reason to expand on them except to say that it would be a valuable tool in our movement towards the exploration of space. Regarding the exploration of time, we look to Q resolution number 9, the International Time Institute. Nations must fund an institute devoted to a better understanding of communication and possible movement through time. Many of these experiments should be staged in space in order to contain the very real dangers of such a venture. Why time travel? Aren't there so many impossibilities? Isn't it such a waste of time? Not in the movie business, at least. If one had a time craft, as well as the ability to clone a human body, they could pull people out of time at the time of their death and replace their body with a cloned replica. This would prevent any causal interference with the timeline, while also evacuating the subject to a timeline in which their survival can be better assured. By pulling resources from time, a developed society could mass human resources to a degree beyond the conventions of anything but the shakiest of particle physics. Perhaps time travel is impossible, except in film. In that event, the International Time Institute can put a stamp on that fact. Time travel is impossible. Fact. On the books. Back to the Future is, as we all suspected, total nonsense. Bringing us to the final Q resolution, number 10, the TRAPPIST mission. Nations must develop and build spacecraft capable of reaching the TRAPPIST system for the purposes of research and potential colonization. Our destiny lies in the stars. If we could unify as a planet towards our betterment, education, and advancement, then we would be worthy explorers of this vast cosmos. As ancient peoples that sail in wooden canoes, we too must dive into the unknown with open hearts and curious minds. If we could find another planet with all the resources we require and another life, then we could build another society there, one free of the chaos, bloodshed, and suffering inflicted on ours. We could learn from those mistakes and forward the best of our hopes and dreams. If we should encounter other explorers, we will be prepared for that event too, ready to communicate, befriend, and respond to the possibility that we are not alone. The truth is out there. It is upon us to find it. These are the Q resolutions, and they are holistic wish lists designed to avert societal and global collapse. To achieve a single resolution would be the imagined dream of our forebears. To achieve all: Cobra, Asp, Mouse, Duck, Nuke, Fez, Sword, Fury, Gas Tank, Star Pistol, Liberty Knife, Planet.
This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.
This is not the end. This is only the beginning of the end. This is the new pain. This is the addiction. There is no hope. There is no going back. This is beyond your understanding. This is beyond your nightmare. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not. This is not a debate of art.
Ah, this is not the end. Ah, this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.
Love in the age of COVID. What is there to say? The novel coronavirus 2019, aka COVID-19, exposed the weakness in our many systems. It showed us how a healthcare system teetering on the brink of collapse could be pushed over the edge. It showed us the callous rage of our times, as neighbors set against neighbors. To mask or not to mask. To vaccinate or not to vaccinate. To distance or not to distance. Every option or choice that moves us forward through time and space. But how to love by the rules of this awful disease. How are we to love one another when that love can bring death? What is true for the individual is true of the family, is true of the community. These are interconnected webs of relationship, and interdependent of one another, they will fall. As will all systems fall, as will all systems fail, but not today, not like this. Today we will fight back. Today, right now, is the turning point in our war against fear and uncertainty. Our battle against misinformation, falsehood, and conspiracy. This is the truth we share, and only truth we offer. There is no reward at the end of this path. That the path continues on is the reward we seek. We miss our loved ones, we miss our families, but we can never return to them. Those ideas exist in a past that even now races into history. The past can neither hurt nor help us, except as learning opportunities. If we should choose to learn from our past mistakes, we may yet create a means of breaking these bonds. Breaking the shackles from our minds, our spirits, and our bodies. Most days are like waking up inside a tank of glass, beating at the walls of our prison with decaying fins. On 9/11/2001, we woke up and began a different part of our lives. It was an abrupt and violent separation from Lydia. The horrors of that day have been buried by disinterest and discomfort, but on this of all days, let us choose to remember those innocent victims. Remember how they were torn apart by explosions. Remember how they rained down from a flaming sky. Remember how they charged into the impossible danger and were crushed into our memories. Remember those who rushed into the crater, tearing apart hot slag with their bare hands. Remember not the evil ones who inflicted that grievous tragedy, but the heroes that responded, those who ran towards the danger in order to save lives. The story of humanity will not be told about those who feared and ran and hoarded and stole and hated in the aftermath of this and every grisly massacre we have inflicted on one another. The story of humanity will be told by those who survive, persevere, and bear faithful witness to those who come after. It has always been this way, a grand tapestry of experience, interwoven through space and time. It is a strange and glorious tale to which all those who see and hear these words play a part. Your role is to be yourself and to remain true to that self, to be free, to be equal, to enjoy justice. But these ideas are not gifts of nature. They are active human verbs moving us towards the great horizon. To be free is not a state, but a movement towards freedom. To be equal is not a condition, but a tension. To maintain justice, we must be just individuals working together towards a common understanding of that term. In order to create and maintain structures of freedom, equality, justice, and peace in our time, we must undo our conceptions of what is achievable. What is impossible should be considered merely improbable, and within a realm of infinite possibility, understand that improbability is merely the inevitable, running late. Could you cram all the most important things you could possibly say into a tight 15-minute postmodern dance? Could you subvert the expectations of our broken society and channel that energy of a storm into the rains of salvation? Could we be willing to open our minds to the possibility that it will all be okay, that we will figure it out and go on to save everyone who has ever existed, to live forever and ever in prosperity and harmony? We could. We really could.